Hi, I'm Oliver Ian from Optima Fitness Systems, your injury recovery specialist. I'll be starting a series of videos that will address a lot of the aches and pains that I hear many of you complain about. These will be short video segments breaking down each injury, then describing how we will go about recovering from those injuries appropriately. For this series, I will address back pain, the most common complaint when it comes to aches and pains and injuries. For the back, I'll be showing you some stretches and exercises that has helped many of the folks that I've worked with over the years get some relief from their back pain and even get rid of it altogether. So I'm confident that I will be able to help you as well. So with that, let's get started. In today's installment, I will demonstrate how to properly do the hip hinge, a simple movement that most people do not do properly. Now understand that first of all, the hip hinge will be the foundation for many of your hip and leg mobility movements. And you will see what I mean. The hip hinge begins by tilting the pelvis or the top of my hip bone forward. And this is called the anterior pelvic tilt. And you will see that my belly protrudes forward as my glutes move backwards, as if I want to sit down. Let's do a few of these just to get used to the movement. And you can put your hands on your side here, just on either side of the hips here, just to help guide them, and continue. And as you do these, if this area feels tight to you, then practice this movement every day, and that'll help loosen this up. Tilt forward, then back straight up. Now what you don't want to do is the posterior pelvic tilt, and that's where the top of the pelvis moves backward. Because when you do that, you can see how the low back then begins to flex and round, which puts much more force and pressure on the low back, and which makes it more prone to injury. So the next time you bend down to reach something, pay attention to see if you do this. And if you find yourself like rounding your back, then don't do that. Instead, make it a point to practice these more, the anterior pelvic tilt. As you do these, tell me, do you feel discomfort in the low back? If so, either your back is injured or your hips are tight and you need to loosen these up. And let's do a few more. Tilt forward, then stand straight up. And this is how the hip hinge begins. Now let's do the hip hinge. We'll begin with the forward pelvic tilt. Then with my hands on top of my thighs, I'll then sit back as I slide my hands down to the knees. In the finished position, you will see that my knees are slightly bent and my butt is sitting back. And from here, we will repeat or return to the standing position and repeat. Tilt the pelvis forward as I move the glutes backward and into the hip hinge. And we'll do a few more of these. Tilt, sit back, and down. You can do these with your hands by your sides or even above your head. Whether your feet are close together or spread far apart, all the same steps apply. Pelvis tilts forward, glutes sit back, and the hip then hinges. Show you that one more time. And that is how you properly hip hinge. Now let me show you how the hip hinge will look as it relates to some of the exercises as well as a lot of the everyday movements you're going to do. With all squat and deadlift movements, properly hip hinging will be the foundation for executing those movements for optimal benefits. I will demonstrate. Now whether I'm front squatting or back squatting, watch how I begin the movement by tilting my pelvis forward, then moving the glutes backward as I then hinge and descend into the squat. Then as I come back up, I'm simply following the same steps in reverse. For the deadlift, which will also include the beginning phases of the power clean and snatch, you will see that all the same principles apply. Do a full range deadlift here, hip hinge, and lift up. And you also see at the top of the snatch position how my hips are properly hinged. And when it comes to everyday life and just picking up objects off the floor or taking groceries out of the trunk, all the same rules apply. So for part 2 in this series, we're going to talk about the essential keys to lifting and lowering when it comes to picking up and putting down objects. So stay tuned for that. Till next time, this is Oliver from Optimum Fitness Systems, teaching you how to stay injury-free. Now go and make today a great day!